Imagine this, right? You're building the absolute perfect digital product.
Oh, the dream scenario.
Exactly. I mean, the
Yeah.
design is flawless, the code is totally pristine, and your investors they're literally using the word immaculate to describe your product roadmap.
Which is terrifying in itself, honestly.
Right. But everything is coming together. You are exactly 4 days away from the soft launch. The marketing emails are queued up.
Team's ready to pop the champagne?
Yeah, ready to celebrate. And then a single message pops up in the team Slack channel. Just one sentence. And it completely, entirely kills the project dead in its tracks.
Oh, man. It is like the scenario that keeps builders awake at night.
Truly.
Because you think you're inches from the finish line, only to realize you never actually checked if you were running in the right stadium.
That is the exact nightmare we are dissecting today in this deep dive.
It's a brutal one.
It is. So our source material today is this incredibly insightful issue of a newsletter called The Regulated MVP.
Oh, yeah. Barak Cohen stuff.
Yes, written by Barak Cohen. He's a veteran with over 18 years in product management.
He's seen a lot.
Oh, he has shipped over 11 fintech minimum viable products, MVPs for banks, investment firms, venture startups. He's seen the absolute worst of it.
Which makes his perspective so valuable.
Right. And our mission today is to explore why the, universally accepted playbook for building software completely falls apart the second real money gets involved.
It shatters.
It really does. But more importantly, we're going to look at this surprisingly simple tool he uses. It's essentially a quick test that can save literal quarters of wasted development time.
And what really stands out in Barak's writing is that, well, he focuses on financial technology, but the underlying principles apply to anything.
Oh, for sure.
It's fundamentally a masterclass in systems thinking. It forces you to look at how hidden structural constraints dictate the physical reality of whatever product you're trying to build.
So let's look at the trap first. Because you go from this theoretical excitement of, hey, we're building this amazing app, to the incredibly harsh reality of operating in a regulated industry.
Which is an immovable wall.
Yeah. Barak outlines the standard product management orthodoxy, the playbook everyone learns in tech.
Right, the classic 5 steps.
Exactly. Step 1, define the user problem. Step 2, scope the minimum feature set. Step 3, build a prototype. Step 4, test it. And step 5, iterate.
Which is, it's a brilliant framework if you're building a to-do list app, right?
Right, or consumer social.
Yeah, or a standard software as a service. Because in those environments, the cost of being wrong is super low.
You just push an update.
Exactly. You build a lightweight version, you put it in users' hands, and you learn from their clicks.
But trying to use that exact same playbook to build a fintech app, it's like deciding to build a sleek, aerodynamic sports car, but totally ignoring the environment it's meant for.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, like you spend 6 months agonizing over the leather seats, the 0 to 60 speed, the exact shade of the paint. It's gorgeous, but you're trying to launch a sports car that is legally required to drive on public train tracks.
That hits the nail on the head. You are operating inside an environment that has its own massive legally enforced infrastructure.
Right.
You can't just, pave your own road.
And you didn't even bother to check the gauge of the tracks or if you had a license to be there.
Which brings us back to that Slack message disaster you mentioned.
Oh, yeah. Barak shares this brutal anecdote. A few years ago, he was advising a Series A lender.
And they had just finished this beautiful onboarding flow, right?
Stripe grade UX. 7 weeks of intense design and engineering work. 4 days from launch. And then the compliance officer dropped a single question into Slack.
Let me guess.
He asked, where does the money actually leave the customer's account?
Oh, wow. And the devastating part of that story is the silence that followed.
Complete crickets.
Because nobody could answer the question. The product manager didn't know. The CTO didn't know.
They had a slick pitch deck, they had a working interface, but they completely lacked a map of the underlying system.
So what happened?
They had to delay the launch for 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
6 weeks of burning startup capital just dead in the water because of one question.
See, we have to unpack the mechanism of why those standard PM steps hit a brick wall here.
Please do.
In fintech, you aren't just moving pixels on a screen to update a database. You are moving someone else's money.
Real money.
Highly regulated, entirely traceable money. So every single step of your process has to answer a very rigid set of questions.
Like what?
Like, who owes whom? When exactly does the obligation change hands? And under whose legal license is this happening?
Right.
If your prototype doesn't answer those questions, it isn't actually a product. It's essentially a hallucination of a product.
A hallucination. That is such a great way to put it. So Barak says that specific disaster was the last, ship first, regulate later MVP he ever built.
Makes sense.
Since then, he realized you have to completely rethink when compliance happens in the building process.
Because the fatal flaw in the standard tech playbook is treating compliance as a final QA check.
Like a gate at the end of the assembly line?
Exactly. You build the whole car, you drive it over to the lawyers, and you ask, hey, is this street legal?
And usually they say no. So his elegantly simple fix is to put compliance into the scope phase.
Bring it to the very front of the line.
Right. You treat it as a core design input, exactly the same way an engineer would treat, like, server latency limits.
Or mobile battery drain. You take the rules of the game and make them the foundation you build upon, rather than just a hurdle at the end.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this because I can hear startup founders screaming right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
Doesn't inviting the lawyers and compliance officers into the room on day one totally suffocate the whole move fast and break things vibe?
It feels like it would.
Yeah, it feels like you're just setting up a massive roadblock before you've even written a line of code.
And that is the universal instinct for builders. It makes total sense if you view compliance as the Department of No.
Right.
But Barak's insight flips that assumption entirely. It is the exact opposite of a roadblock.
How so?
By bringing these constraints into the initial scoping phase, you actually cut your feature backlog by 30 to 40% on day one.
Oh, wow. Meaning you instantly realize what not to build?
Precisely. You sit down with the regulations and immediately realize that half the flashy features you planned are either straight up illegal in your target countries.
Or they need some crazy banking license.
Exactly, a license that takes 2 years to acquire.
Barak has this quote that completely crystallizes this for me. He says, knowing that at week 1 is a gift, finding it at week 9 is a disaster.
Because finding it at week 9 means you've burned engineering hours.
You've exhausted your runway.
And now you have to walk into a board meeting and explain to your investors why the killer feature they funded is being ripped out of the app.
Well, finding it at week 1 means you just, erase a line on a whiteboard and move on.
Exactly.
So if identifying these legal landmines in week 1 is the ultimate superpower, how do you actually do it without spending a month reading legal statutes?
That's the million-dollar question.
And this is where Barak introduces his core tool, the ultimate quick test for product viability. He calls it the money flow map.
And what I find so compelling about this artifact is how unapologetically low-tech it is.
It takes 2 hours to make. It's literally just 1 page.
You can draw it on a napkin.
Yeah, or Excalidraw, doesn't matter. But that 2-hour quick test saves quarters of development time.
It's incredible.
So rather than just listing out the pieces of this map, let's actually build a hypothetical one.
Let's do it.
Okay, say you and I are building a new app that lets friends pool their money together to buy expensive concert tickets.
Oh, a classic split payment use case. Perfect.
Right. So the first component of the map is the parties.
Okay.
We have to draw every single entity that touches the money or the data. It's not just user A, user B, and our app.
Right, because there's so much more infrastructure.
Exactly. We need to map the customer, our platform, our BOSS provider. And just to clarify, BOSS is banking as a service, so that's us renting a real bank's plumbing.
Got it.
We also map the card network, like Visa, and the final ticket vendor. Everyone goes on the board.
Okay, so once the board is set, the second component is the events.
The state transitions.
Exactly. When someone clicks buy, what actually happens mechanically? It isn't just one action called money sends.
Right. It's never that simple.
You have to map the authorization, which is just checking if the user has the funds and putting a hold on them.
Okay.
Then you map the capture when the funds are actually pulled.
Yeah.
And what if the concert is canceled?
Oh, then you need a refund flow.
Exactly. Or a chargeback if the user disputes it. Each of these events represents a totally different mechanical reality.
Okay, so we know who is involved. We know the events. The third component is the rails.
The physical or digital wires.
Yeah. Yeah, the actual pipes moving the value. And this is where a lot of builders get tripped up. Because if we are moving money from a user's bank account in the US, are we using ACH?
Which is cheap but takes days.
Exactly. Or are we in Europe using SEPA, a direct wire, a stablecoin?
The rail dictates the physical laws of your product.
It really does.
It dictates the speed, the transaction cost, and the specific rules of movement. You literally cannot design a real-time feature if your underlying rail only operates in slow overnight batches.
Which brings us to the fourth component, and this is the absolute core of the map, the licenses.
Illegal boundaries.
Right. Every time an arrow points from one party to another on our map, we have to ask who is legally permitted to execute that move.
Who holds the regulatory risk?
Exactly. Is it our startup's license? Is it our boss partners?
And finally, the fifth component is the records,
Right.
the audit trail.
What gets written down?
Yeah, what gets written, which party writes it, and how long are they legally required to keep it?
Because regulators love their paperwork.
Well, a regulator doesn't just care that the money moves safely. They care that 5 years from now, you can definitively prove exactly who initiated the transfer and why.
So we have the parties, events, rails, licenses, and records. And Barak has one unbreakable rule when you draw this map.
What's that?
Every single arrow in your diagram must have a legal owner, and every single box needs a licensee behind it.
No exceptions.
None. If you're drawing this map and you find a blank space, say, an arrow moving money from user A to B, but you can't fill in the license, it's not a drawing error.
It's a fatal gap.
It's a fatal gap in your product. Bring it back to our plumbing metaphor.
I love the plumbing metaphor.
It's like looking at the blueprints for a brand new house. You spend weeks picking out this gorgeous brushed brass, ultra-modern faucet.
The UI is stunning.
Stunning. But if you look at the schematic and realize the physical pipes, the rails and licenses, don't actually connect to the city's water main.
No water's coming out.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how pretty the faucet is.
It's a beautiful interface masking a fundamentally broken plumbing system. And in regulated industries, broken plumbing doesn't just mean a bad user experience.
Right.
It means you're actively breaking the law.
Okay, so we have the theory, we understand this quick test, but I want to see this save a company in real time.
Oh, the Series B Treasury startup example?
Yes. Barak details this brilliant real-world example in the source. The startup comes to him. They have a 14-feature product roadmap.
Very ambitious.
Very. They have massive, beautiful Figma design files detailing every screen and a tight 90-day window to ship the whole thing.
The engineering team is ready to sprint.
Ready to go. So what does Barak do? He completely ignores the Figma files.
It's just sets them aside.
He pulls the leadership team into a room, and for the first 2 hours, they don't look at a single screen design, they just draw the money flow map.
And this is where the ROI for those 2 hours becomes undeniably clear.
Because in just 2 hours, that quick test uncovers 3 massive landmines that would have absolutely destroyed the company post-launch.
Let's unpack these mechanisms, because they are fascinating.
Yeah, landmine number 1 was their instant payouts feature. I love this one because it's a marketing failure disguised as a technical issue.
It's a classic trap. Instant payouts was the headline feature on their marketing site.
It was what they were pitching to VCs.
Exactly. But when they got to component formapping the licenses, they realized their banking partner's license did not legally cover 2 of their primary target countries.
And Barak's response to them is just brutally honest.
What did he say?
He told the founders, instant payout, except in the 2 largest markets you're pitching to VCs, is not a feature. It's a rewrite of your entire positioning statement.
Ouch. That is a profound wake-up call.
Totally.
They had built their entire company's identity around a promise they were legally incapable of delivering in their most important markets.
But because they ran that quick test in the first 2 hours, they had time to pivot.
Right. They downgraded the feature to same-day payout, which their license actually supported.
And avoided a disastrous launch. Okay, landmine number 2. This one perfectly illustrates the mechanical reality we talked about.
The 72-hour refund.
Yes. The product spec promised users a 72-hour refund. Sounds great for UX, right?
In a vacuum, sure. But when they mapped component 3, the rails, they uncovered a massive mechanical mismatch.
What was it?
The specific payment rail they were using to process those transactions had a 5-business-day settlement cycle.
Meaning, mechanically, the system takes 5 business days to actually hand the money back to the startup.
Right.
So let's do the math. If the startup promises the customer their money back in 72 hours, but it takes the system 5 days to give the startup the cash.
Where does the money come from for those missing 2 days?
It has to come out of the startup's own bank account. The platform has to eat that timing gap and front the cash.
And Barak points out something crucial here. That is not a software bug you catch in QA.
No.
That is a massive unfunded liability caught in planning.
Think about it. If they process $1 million in refunds on a Friday, the startup suddenly has to float $1 million of their own cash until the rail settles the next Wednesday.
A high volume of refunds could have literally drained their cash reserves and bankrupted them in a weekend.
They caught a company-ending cash flow crisis just by drawing arrows on a whiteboard.
That's wild.
Wild. All right, landmine number 3, record keeping. When mapping component 5, they realized their customer records were split between 2 entirely different back-end systems.
Oh, no.
And they were using totally inconsistent customer ID formats.
Going back to your plumbing metaphor, this is like the city water inspector showing up to certify your building, but your blueprints are written in 3 different languages.
And none of them match the physical pipes?
Exactly. If a financial regulator walks in and says, show me the complete end-to-end transaction history for customer X, and your systems literally cannot talk to each other.
You are in deep trouble.
Barak describes trying to untangle that as an auditor's nightmare requiring a spreadsheet and a prayer.
A spreadsheet and a prayer. I love that. They had to completely halt work and unify that architecture, or they would have been fundamentally out of compliance on day 1.
So look at the net result of that 2-hour quick test.
Their feature count dropped from 14 down to 9. They still shipped within their 90-day window, but they shipped a product that was mechanically sound, entirely legal, and fully auditable.
Because the real return on investment of the money flow map isn't just validating what you should build.
No.
It's aggressively exposing what you must stop building. It's the multi-million-dollar disasters you avoid.
They could look an auditor in the eye on launch day, rather than spending the next quarter desperately trying to document a broken system backwards.
Such a game changer.
So bringing this all back to you, the listener, even if you have absolutely no intention of ever building a fintech app, this deep dive is a masterclass in identifying the rigid constraints of your industry.
Before you start designing the flashy features.
Exactly.
Because every single industry has its own invisible rails.
Oh, for sure.
If you're building in healthcare, it's IPA compliance and the flow of patient data. If you're building in logistics, it's physical weight limits and customs regulations.
If you don't use a quick test to map those absolute constraints first, your beautiful UI is totally irrelevant.
Right. So Barak leaves us with 3 immediate, highly tactical takeaways, things you can physically do this Monday.
I love tactical takeaways.
Number 1, book 2 hours on your calendar and draw your map. Outline your parties, events, rails, licenses, and records.
And it gives a great benchmark for this.
Yeah, if your map is longer than a single page, you have already overscoped your product. And if you can't fill in a specific license column, that feature is your very first scope cut.
It forces brutal, reality-based prioritization.
Number 2, forward that single-page map to your compliance advisor or legal counsel before your next product review meeting.
Not after, before.
Exactly. And ask them just one simple question. Which of these arrows is going to take you longer than 90 days to approve? Whatever they point to, that is your cut list. That is such a smart reframing. You are leveraging the lawyers as a high-speed filter to protect your timeline, rather than treating them as a roadblock at the end.
And number 3, make that map section 1 of your product spec. Put it right at the top of the document before you show a single user story or wireframe.
Every single feature below it needs to explicitly cite which boxes or arrows it depends on.
If an engineer is building a feature that can't be traced back to the reality of the map, it shouldn't be built.
That establishes a culture of structural reality within your entire team.
Definitely.
But, as we look at this framework, it raises a really profound question about where the tech industry is heading right now.
Where do you mean?
Well, we've just spent all this time looking at how essential this flow map is for regulated money. But look at the explosion of artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We are entering an era where AI models and data decisions are beginning to carry massive legal, ethical, and regulatory weight.
That is a really interesting pivot.
It makes you wonder, what does the data flow map or the logic flow map look like for an AI product?
Right.
Are the massive tech companies and AI startups right now making the exact same ship first, regulate later mistake with artificial intelligence that early fintechs used to make with money?
Are they building shiny, consumer-friendly chatbots without mapping the legal ownership of the training data arrows behind the scenes?
That's the question.
That is an incredibly provocative thought to leave on. Are we currently building the AI sports car on public train tracks?
It is definitely something to seriously mull over.
Yeah. So, as you head back to the desk, or whatever project you're tackling next, remember to look past the beautiful interface.
Find the hidden rails.
Map the pipes with a quick test, and make absolutely sure you know the mechanical reality of your system before someone drops that one dreaded Slack message 4 days before launch.
Because nobody wants that message.
Nobody. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Map your constraints, and we'll catch you next time.